Hello YouTube. Based on all the comments, I saw that there was some more interest in how I made this and some of the components I used for it. So I'll give you a little overview of what I did to build it, what I used. I used a four-wheeler, a Polaris 500cc Outlaw. I used the front A-arms and the hubs. Now, you can see that the hubs are flipped. Instead of running the steering out the back, it is out the front with a rack and pinion. So I basically flipped it and put the left one on the right and the right one on the left, as you can see by the label. The brakes are the stock calipers and rotors, but I just used different banjos and ran my own lines from Ben Hill. You can get custom lengths. A splitter for the front. There's the front master cylinder, and then this is the rear brake master cylinder. There's a bias bar set up on the pedals. This is a Tilton pedal assembly. It's got the clutch, the brake, and the throttle. The clutch I also made hydraulic, so it's got its own master cylinder and reservoir. The cable I kept, or the throttle, I kept it as a cable and just made my own bracket coming off the pedal instead of buying the assembly for 130 bucks. The shocks are all from the four-wheeler. They have preload adjustments and a dual rate spring. So this was light enough to where I could use them and just bring up the preload a little bit. The wheels and tires, these are Sun F. Kind of a flat tracker tire. Mama doesn't want me tearing up the yard, so I couldn't get an aggressive tread on it. The wheels are DWT blue label or red label, and all I did was find the bolt pattern for it and kind of figured out how the offset was going to work so that my track widths would be similar. They come in all different offsets and all different bolt patterns, so you can get that set up. The steering, 14-inch rack and pinion. I got a coupler, taking it to a 3/4 inch steering shaft. I've got a U-joint there to change the angle, and then a quick release hub welded onto the shaft there. Go stainless steel if you can. Those rust if you don't paint them. The engine itself is a Polaris 500cc, about 40 horsepower, built-in manual sequential gearbox. So we'll check that out over here. Yeah, so the transmission is just built into the ATV engine itself. So here's the shift lever. You can recognize I just used the old foot lever, drilled off the peg, put a new hole for my shift linkage. So it works just as the factory would have had it, just not with your foot. The gearing, I originally geared it way down because I figured this would be heavy, but I ended up putting the stock front sprocket back on. The rear sprocket is a +3 because I'm running a larger tire. So at minimum, I had to compensate for running a larger tire. Now, I'm actually building a second one that's going to show the rear end a little better. Yeah, so went stainless with the steering shaft. Add another stabilizer so it doesn't wiggle at all. Here's a nice shot of that Tilton pedal assembly. I don't have the reservoirs on yet, but you can see all the master cylinders are on. This one was actually a KTM 525 engine, so it's gonna be a little stronger. Again, I just got to drill a hole on the shift lever and run my linkage. I got +6-inch length axles, and I'm rebuilding the whole CV assembly. That's what gives me that extra track width in the rear. Now you'll have to check the splines. And there's the inside of how that works. So normal CVs have like a can looking thing, And those balls and that CV joint just run inside that can. That takes care of your plunge when your axle moves up and down. Polaris was actually pretty slick in their engineering, where they made this whole rear end, the inside CV race, outer race, if you want to call it that. The brakes are already on it, and the gear's already on it. So it works out really well. I haven't put the boots on yet. So all I did is I bought a +6 axle, and then I made my own A-arms. You can see the heim joints there at the attachment point. That way you can adjust camber, you can adjust toe, and you can adjust the A-arm length so that your plunge is solid. These are the stock Polaris Outlaw hubs, and I just use the factory attachment points for my A-arms. I haven't finished the welding. Everything's tacked together on this right now. The first one I did, as soon as I finished something, I did the final weld on it, and I had to do a lot of cutting. So now everything is tacked until it's done. The seat is just an NRG racing seat. I just ran crossbars for the attachment, put a little bit of an angle on it. The dash is what I'm currently working on. This is just super thin metal, but when you put bends in it and mount it, it stiffens it up. Here's the core support. The dash core support, pretty simple. Leaves room for all the electronics to be in there nice and tidy. The tubing is just 1.5 inch 0.083 wall. For the heavier structures, I used a 0.95. I'm sorry, a 0.120, because this is 2 pieces welded together with a little slug in there. And when you use 120 wall, you can use 1.25 inch tubing for that sleeve that goes in there. So the windshield and the main floor is 120, because they were both 2 pieces. There's the attachment for that. The support bars are all 1.25 inch 0.083 wall. Yeah, the first one, this one has been flipped a couple times, not by me, by guys with a little too much confidence. From the first drive, it was very, very confident to drive it however you wanted. That sway bar keeps it nice and flat. But if you're in loose stuff, like on a beach, and you go full speed and then cut the wheel, anything's gonna flip. Some of the tools I used, the biggest one is this bender right here. It's a JD Squared Model 3. And I've got 3 sets of dies. I've got the 1.5 inch, 5.5 centerline radius. I've got the 1.25 inch with a 4.5 inch centerline radius. And then I've got a 1 inch for the A-arms. That is, I think a 3 inch, maybe 3.5 inch radius, centerline radius. Another big thing I had to get was a notcher. This was not the notcher I used on the first one. The first one I used a Versa notcher, and I didn't have very much luck with it. This is a Rogue Fabrications notcher, and it is amazing. It has made this work so much easier. It's made all my bits last so much longer because it's just so sturdy. Vibration is what breaks the teeth off your hole saws. Bench grinder, because you're going to grind every piece of metal you work with. Center punch makes all of your drill holes super accurate. Basic Ryobi drill press, but stepper bits. All your holes are going to be 3/8, almost a 1/2 inch. So this will save you a lot of money in just breaking and smoking out normal bits. They're expensive, but worth it. Angle grinder, I wish I had 2 of them. One with the cut wheel and one with a flapper wheel. for on-the-spot sanding, grinding. Yeah, so that's how it's coming along so far. This one is looking way better. I changed some of the chassis designs. I gave like 4 more inches of headroom. I lifted the front end about 3 inches so it doesn't come to so much of a point in the front. And it just gives it a more aggressive look. I moved this angle back 4 inches to give more room for the radiator and gas tank. Just little stuff like that. I had to build one to figure out how to adjust it to make it where I wanted it. So this one is a representation of everything I learned from that one. I did run more aggressive tires on it. They're taller, they're heavier, they're steelies, so they're heavier anyway. It didn't hurt the performance much, but to be the same, have the same acceleration, it needs to be geared down a little bit, or else you're gonna lose out on some power. But they're still plenty fast. You can still do donuts and get crazy with it. So yeah. I'm working on doing a CAD video showing how I came up with the initial design, and not so much a walkthrough on CAD, but how to use the software I'm using. I'm using Bentech. And it took me 3-4 months to get this design finalized. So to try to explain that in a 10-minute video is kind of hard. So I'm working on that. That CAD program really unlocked the design potential for anything. My next design is going to be a 2-seater. So it's just going to be this kind of expanded for 2 people. But Bentech just lets you get your ideas, everything that's in your head out and into something you can see and rotate and mess with. Super enjoyable. Thanks for watching.